Welcome to Books to Africa on Air, where we discuss interesting topics with a focus on Africa. My name is Tonson Sango, and I'm your host for today. And I'm going to be talking with one of our featured authors, Ziri Dafranchi. Ziri, you're welcome.
Thank you.
We're going to be talking about Ziri's book called Life: A Mystery Solved, okay, which I found quite interesting. Okay, so that's the book there. Very interesting cover there. And also, I want you guys to also, of course, learn a bit more about Ziri himself, who is one of the authors who supports Books to Africa. So I'm quite looking forward to chatting with you today.
Thank you.
Welcome. Are you okay today?
Yes, I am. Thank you for having me around. It's a pleasure to be here on Books to Africa.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. I mean, we've always been saying we'll do this show, and finally we have the time. So I'm glad. Let's start with your name. Ziri Dafranchi.
Yeah.
Quite an interesting name. Is that your real name?
Yeah, Ziri is my real name, and Ziri is short for Chike Ziri. Mm-hmm. And the middle name is Chiwetudo. Dafranchi is a business name. I'll just quickly point out here that some people think Dafranchi is Italian or even French.
Yeah, it sounds Italian.
Yeah, but incidentally, it's none of those. It's
Really?
my own invention.
So you invented the name Dafranchi.
Yes, I did.
How does that happen? I mean, how do you invent a name, and why? Why do you invent a name?
Well, this goes far back as I think 1989 or so. What happened? Myself and two very close friends, we were going to go into a business partnership. Then I was still in uni at the time. And
where is this? Was this in the UK or?
No, back in Nigeria.
In Nigeria, okay.
Yeah, and I needed to, I thought, okay, let me get a name from, the three names, actually. So I took a bit of each of the names. The CHI at the end of the Dafranchi actually is from Chike Ziri.
Okay.
Yeah, and I conned it up, and it was catchy, and I kept it. Incidentally, that business didn't take off as it was.
And what business was it about?
I can't even remember. And I think it's supposed to have something to do with maybe, uni students, you just have all these ideas coming up. You want to just make some whatever. Some kind of partnership, get together, maybe buy some stuff and sell or whatever. So, but then it didn't take off, but the name stuck with me. And I've used it ever since then, officially as a business name. And came over to this country, and social media started, and I just used Ziri Dafranchi as my social media name, and I've used
a lot of people know you as
yeah.
Do you think more people know you as Ziri Dafranchi now as opposed to as Chike Ziri?
Well, those who know me from home, I would say, know me as Chike Ziri, but those who have met me formally, I mean online or through social media, know me as Ziri Dafranchi. And to them, really, I'm sure they might be surprised to say, oh, that's not his real name, because it's as good as a real name for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite common for authors to use like a pen name different from their own name. So, I mean, when you're writing, for example, Life: A Mystery Solved, the author is Ziri Dafranchi, which, it's you. And it also, I guess, I mean, does it help as an author to have a different pen name from your real name? And if so, how? How does it help?
Yeah, it should help. It depends on what your motive or your motivation is. If you're trying to remain anonymous, maybe because of what you're writing, either, some people are not very confident with their writing. They feel, oh, I don't know how the public will receive it. Or the nature of what they are writing. Some people who write erotica, they don't want to actually use their real name.
Or any sort of sensitive material, political or religious or,
so they might decide,
controversial.
Yeah, they might decide to adopt a pen name. But in my case, actually, I wouldn't say that Ziri Dafranchi is a pen name. It's more of a working name for me, because it doesn't give me much of an anonymity. If you go on Google and you check Ziri Dafranchi, you see my picture all over the place. Anyway, so I'm not really hiding. But why I had to use the name for Ziri Dafranchi for my writing, I didn't start writing books. I started by sharing my thoughts on social media. And I was already generating a kind of online audience with that name, Ziri Dafranchi, people who knew me by that name.
Yeah.
And when the book came, and I had to make a decision. Should I now use Chike Zero Giaco or should I use Ziri Dafranchi? But I mean, it dawned on me that, you know what, for continuity with the same audience, you don't want to shock them and say, oh, if you write a book, then you have to be explaining to them, oh, this is me.
Right,
So
right,
I just went with the name that is already out there.
Yeah, and it's a good name, I must say. It sounds very catchy and very kind of interesting, you know.
Yeah.
What I would say is, I mean, there are lots of people who might be watching today and they're thinking maybe they're, you know, young people in Africa or Africans or even non-Africans who want to start writing their first book and they're very nervous about, oh, you know, all my friends know me, they might read this book and they'll hate me or they'll hate my views or, you know, it's going to be so, you know, or what if the book fails? Then it means I'm a failure. So, I mean, from that kind of perspective, does it help? I mean, first of all, does it help you to, in a sense, have a different name on your books? If, for example, say the book doesn't do as well as you thought, you have some kind of backup. And secondly, for somebody who is thinking of starting to write their first book, would you advise them to use a different name other than their real name or not?
The truth of the matter is pen names, I think, might be a bit controversial. For a young writer who is, say, somewhere in Africa and you want to write, my advice would be to you, use your original names, except you have any reason. Say you are known by a particular name, like you have the artists, the musicians, they just adopt a name, okay, for a particular reason. Okay, fine, but you have to be authentic and original. Did you get me?
Authentic and original.
Yeah.
So that's
and
very
part
important.
of that authenticity actually should be your name. Like I've already explained. If I hadn't had an online presence with Ziri Dafranchi, I would have preferred to actually use Chike Zero Giaco on my books so that people know that this is who I am. But again, I believe that this is all part of a bigger plan that is beyond me. Yeah, but for a young person or anybody who's trying to come into writing, oh well, my first approach would be to use your original name as per how you might be received or the content of your writing might be received. If you are true to yourself, you shouldn't really bother how people perceive you. So long as you are authentic, you are original, and what you're bringing out is truth, then you shouldn't bother whether people accept you or not.
Right. And of course, somebody might say, well, you know, that's fine. If I manage to be bold enough to say, look, I don't care about what people think. I'm just I believe in this. It is the truth or it is my truth. And I want to get it out there. How do you then go from that to actually a solid book, you know, a final book?
What I often say to people is,
I mean, what was it like for you, your journey to kind of
my
like,
journey to writing actually, it's a surprise to me even that I'm an author, as it were, because my background has nothing to do with writing.
Oh yeah, tell us a bit about that. Yeah.
My academic background, I have a first degree in agricultural economics, from the prestigious Federal University of Technology, Owerri.
Okay.
Which when we were there, it was a place that didn't permit you much of social life because of the rigors of the academic curricula. But yeah, and my working professional career experience has been, I worked at Coopers & Lybrand, which is now PricewaterhouseCoopers, professional accounting, banking and finance, and administration and management. That's company-wise.
Interesting. So you're kind of like a regular person.
Yes, yeah, in so many ways. I didn't read anything to do with literature per se. As a matter of fact, in secondary school, you know, when you go to, I did the 5-year stuff in secondary school, not now that they have 6 years, and after year 3, I think it is, you then branch into either arts or science. I was a full science student.
Right.
So nothing to do with, I didn't do literature,
never
history.
studied arts, never did any creative
Except for the
writing,
lower secondary level up to 1 year. I never did any of that. So writing, as it were, is new to me. And the point I'm trying to make is, you don't just say, oh, I want to be a writer, and then you start looking for something to write. Well, from my own experience, which is what I say to people, before you want to go into writing, you must have something you want to give out. Something must have come to you, which is beyond you, which you know that you can't contain yourself. You want people out there to actually, this is what I have come up. This is the inspiration I have received, or this is the thought that has come to me, and you have to share this with me because it is more than me. So you don't just say, I want to write, and then you start scratching your head. Okay, what should I do, fiction or non-fiction? Okay, let's say fiction. What kind of story should I tell? I mean, you will struggle anyway. So anybody who wants to write, as a young people or old person, wherever, there's no age limit to writing, by the way. Anytime you have the call, you can go for it. But I would say you should start from within.
So basically, what you're saying to me, and I think this is very important, right? For anybody out there who wants to write, don't think about trying to be a writer or an author. Think about what it is that you want to communicate.
Yeah.
What is that idea that is burning inside you that you just have to share with others?
Yeah. Writing, for me, is not necessarily, shouldn't be seen as a career. I want to go into writing to make money. Well, how many authors actually are millionaires? You know,
Not a lot.
And say you have a public mic somewhere here, and we have a big audience here. Okay. You just jump up and take the mic because you want publicity.
No,
Well,
you
do
must
that.
have something to say.
Yeah, but do that, then you will struggle.
Yeah.
In fact, your publicity might be a shame to you because you might be stammering, and then that's it.
Yeah.
But you have something you want to say. You come out, you take the mic. Hello, people, listen to me, and then everyone is listening to you, and then you start speaking to them. That's how writing should be.
Interesting that you draw that comparison between kind of writing and speaking. I mean, of course, right, do you actually, this is a practical question, and we're going to go in a break very quickly.
Okay.
But do you actually type your books? I mean, when you write your books, do you actually physically type it, or do you, maybe say record it on a voice note and then transcribe it? Or what kind of techniques do you use?
Well, I just write. I use my laptop, actually. That's my baby. And yeah, I just take it, and then whatever it is comes and I write. Or for the shorter articles I write and I share on social media, my phone is with me most of the time.
Okay, so you write mostly on your laptop or on your phone?
I don't know if it's going to be how effective it is to use maybe a voice recording and then begin to transcribe it. And I think it will take a lot of time. But well, each to their own, whatever works for you. But inspiration comes, be ready to catch it when it comes. Whichever way.
Ready to catch it.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. I want us to kind of get into this book, Life, a Mystery Solved. So, I mean, the first thing that came to my mind is, does this book solve the mystery of life?
Good question. Well, the title says Life, a Mystery Solved. The book itself has its own journey. And when I started, it was the primary motivation behind the book. At the stage in my life when I started writing the background materials for this book, because I wrote stuff about life which I shared online. I was amazed at how we kind of complicated what ought to be a very simple thing, which is life. It's very simple in so many ways, but we kind of complicated it. And I just said, it actually started as life an enigma, something we can't even comprehend, we can't really decode. But in writing, it soon dawned on me that actually it's no longer confusing. This is actually presenting, it's kind of resolving the apparent mysteries of surrounding life, which is why that title comes up. Yes, it would help you decode whatever mysteries life has or holds as it pertains to you as an individual, because it is an interactive type of book. I'm not just telling you, but I'm presenting you with enough information, and there are exercises contained in it which you should actually engage in. We should pause. When I say pause and reflect upon this for a moment, I actually expect the reader to pause and reflect upon whatever it is you're supposed to reflect upon. Because it is in your own reflection, because each life is different. My birth circumstances, for instance, are not the same as yours, and likewise every other person. So it would apply to you based on your own individual and unique experience in life. But if you begin to reflect, then you will begin to get the answers from within yourself.
So in a sense, I mean, would it be accurate to say that, I mean, this book kind of, because in this world where everything is kind of fast-paced, we're living in this microwave generation where everything is kind of like off the shelf very quickly, quick solutions. nobody has the time to stop and just think for a minute and just reflect.
Yep.
Why am I doing what I'm doing? Where am I going? Where am I headed? So would it be accurate to say that this book is kind of like, or one of the suggestions in this book is drawing people to say, look, can you just take a minute and stop and reflect?
Yes, actually. I think there is a chapter 6 or so is mind control. And then one of the quotations I've used there is cogito ergo sum, which is by René Descartes. I think, therefore I am. And I realize that it is the ability to think that makes us an individual, makes a person an individual. Otherwise, we're just a group of people. If you're controlled to behave the same way, to receive information the same way, to decode it the same way. If we are given an information and we are conditioned, we're already preconditioned such that we receive that information the way the person giving that information expects us to receive it, then we're not really processing. It's not a process. We're not thinking per se. And then we are just a group of people. But you stand out because if I make a sentence and you look at that sentence, it could say something different to you as it would to another person. Our perception about things are different. And that uniqueness is what makes us an individual. And that uniqueness can only come out where you engage your mind. Interesting. About mind, let me quickly say this. Another quote attributed to Hitler says, how fortunate for leaders that men don't think. This was Hitler talking. How fortunate it is for leaders that men don't think. What does that tell you? It means that when you don't think, it is easy for anyone to just control you, to move you in any direction he wants to move you. And that's what he meant by that. Right. But then he also is implying that if we are able to use our mind, you wonder, why do we have a mind? If you're able to use your mind, then definitely you wouldn't fall prey to any form of manipulation or misleading.
So in a sense, what you're saying is, on what your book is trying to say, Life a Mystery Solved. I mean, you're trying to say that the starting point to solving the mystery of life is to, in a sense, gain control of your mind, to stop, to think, and to find what makes you unique.
Yes, you could say that. I mean, in life, generally, the first chapter that one of the chapters talks about who am I? Because how are you going to live your life if you don't know who you are? If I tell you that you are this, and then you believe me, and then somebody else comes and tells you, no, this is not who you are, this is who you are. You believe them. You have no basis, But how are you going to discover who you are if you don't think for yourself? Why are you here? How are you going to discover why you are here if you don't think for yourself? So it starts with the mind.
And of course, if the mind is the starting point, then it must be very important for the mind to be in a good place. Because of course your mind could be, warped, your thinking could be, like you said, it could be under the control of somebody else, it could be under the control of or influence of drugs, it could be under the control or influence of false teachings or false philosophies, or, well, even if they're not false, even if they are skewed to in a particular way, then it can affect everything else that proceeds from that mind.
Yeah. The fact is, from my experience and in my opinion, almost every present mind, is already under a form of control. We're conditioned, the way we even think, the way we perceive life itself, we are conditioned, okay? And it is necessary that we begin to regain the control of our mind, which is what that chapter, Mind Control, actually addresses. There is the need for us to lay aside, the various ideologies with which we have been inculcated growing up. I don't want to go into race per se, but it's something they say that there's a doll experiment, the doll test, and these were young children, okay? But based on, you wonder who taught them that, this light is better than dark, for instance. So some of these actually, it just flows from
the way they were brought up, the way the system, the culture.
Yeah. So it is imperative upon each individual, okay, to try as much as possible to at least release their mind from the control under which most minds are presently. And that is why you see here independent thinkers or whatever, where you need to actually get to the point where you are able to process information as independently as possible. Because I have thought about this deep, and I realized that it might be actually impossible being absolutely independent.
Yeah.
We want to engage the use of your mind, because you would always have, an existing condition or conditioning anyway.
I mean, just because you mentioned race, and I know your book isn't just about black people or black race, it's kind of like life,
Life
generally
general,
speaking,
human beings.
and kind of like trying to break out of, whatever is holding you captive. But with regards to the black race, I mean, a lot of times when we think about Africans or black people, we tend to see that across the board, in America, across, Africa, we are almost in some kind of mental bondage, whereby we put ourselves, or we have found ourselves in a place where mentally we are struggling we're struggling with a lot of mental kind of restrictions, in a world that tells us that, in a world where there's racism, in a world where, Africans have been, enslaved in the past, in the world where we've been under colonial rule. I mean, surely being liberated isn't just about having kind of state independence and having our own countries. It seems like we are still stuck in some kind of mental prison, or we're still captive mentally.
Yeah.
And what do you think is, in terms of how does your book help somebody break free from that kind of mentality?
Well, that same chapter, by the time you get through from the beginning to the end, anyway, you should begin to realize your uniqueness as an individual. But my second book actually deals with the issue that you raised about race and black and white and what have you. But the fact is, the whole world is under mental slavery, black and white.
Right.
They're both under mental slavery.
Right.
For the black people, there is a degree of mental slavery, okay, which makes a person believe in their own inferiority.
Right.
Which is absurd for a human being to believe that he is inferior simply because of the color of his skin.
Right.
All right. But on the other hand, it's also a form of mental slavery for any human being to arrogate superiority to himself or herself just because of the color of his or her skin. So there is the big divide within humanity.
Of course.
In the line of black and white. But the truth is, blacks are not only the ones under mental slavery. Yes, their mental slavery is obvious because of the general structure of the world, whereby they see themselves, okay, we are struggling, Africa is poor, Africa is this, Africa is that, black mentality, fine. But on the other hand, it's also a form of slavery. For you to really believe in your own superiority, for you to treat a fellow human being in an inhuman way, simply because you see his color different, whereas the both of you are just human beings.
Yeah.
So yeah, the world is under a lot of slavery, and why I have to mention this is because oftentimes when we try to address the issue of race, we focus more on black people.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
but the truth is, my understanding is, it is ignorance that is responsible for this slavery.
Right.
And that same ignorance on the part of black people is also the same ignorance is responsible for white people behaving in the way they behave, for those who behave in the way they behave. Do you understand what I mean?
Who are racist.
Yeah, because for instance, somebody who believes in their own superiority, why would they believe in that? Because they are ignorant to believe that they're actually superior based on what they have been told. If they understand the truth, which is that humanity has a single and same origin, incidentally, in Africa, then you will realize that, how can I then be superior to someone whereas we have the same origin?
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense. So it is ignorance that is responsible. And that ignorance is the biggest bondage or source of mental slavery that we have. We need to now begin to re-educate ourselves, black, white, humanity. We need to begin to re-educate ourselves.
Absolutely. And on that note, I want you to actually read a bit of your book, just to give people who are watching a taste of why they should read your book and what is to come. So if you have any section in your, I mean, there's. By the way, it's not really, again, guys, it's not a really big book. I mean, as you can see, very nicely polished there, hardback, softback.
Yeah, paperback.
You can read this easily within sort of a week or month, depending on what kind of reader you are. So Ziri, when you're ready, just read a short section.
Okay, I'm going to read Life a Mystery Solved, which is my first book, and I've chosen to read the very first page actually, and for good reason, because it talks about the mysteries of life. It asks you questions about who am I, why am I here. It talks about life, talks about the journey of life, and then it talks about actually the end of it in the natural, which is dying. But the very beginning reveals the first mystery, of life, and which you will soon identify yourself. I'll read chapter 1, it's Inception. Through medical science, biology in particular, we understand that every human life begins when a woman's ovum is fertilized by a man's sperm, either through sexual intercourse or by artificial insemination, resulting in the formation of an embryo. It is believed that this embryo undergoes a series of transformation in the womb of the woman for an average period of 9 months, known as the gestation period, after which it is delivered as a fully developed newborn baby. While the process described above might indeed be a factual and even accurate representation of the beginning of each human life, what is left unexplained, however, is why a particular sperm cell out of the 40 million to 1.2 billion released by ejaculation gets to be the one that eventually fertilizes a particular ovum. Again, out of the 15 to 20 produced by a woman on a monthly basis during ovulation. Well, we are expected to believe that this occurrence is entirely random and down to chance alone. The truth, however, is that nothing in life is random nor happens by chance. And so, right from the very beginning of life, that's through human reproduction, we encounter the very first mystery of life, which is why it was a particular sperm cell that fertilized a particular ovum. This is just one of the many mysteries Life a Mystery Solved addresses. The very beginning of human life. We understand, yes, it is an embryo is formed through fertilization. But what we don't know is why is it a particular sperm cell that gets to fertilize a particular ovum?
And more importantly, that sperm cell becomes a being, isn't it? It becomes a human being which is unique in every way from everybody else, So it almost seems like a race, this race where somebody. So in a sense, listen, just buy the book to figure out why. Okay, I don't want to sell it out. Okay, but Ziri's book is available everywhere books are sold. And of course, you can follow the links as well, provided here on the video as well. But I found this book really interesting to read as well. And I'm going to ask you, I mean, I know you're a supporter of Books to Africa. What do you think in terms of the role of books and what Books to Africa tries to do, which is, to kind of promote African authors, to encourage Africans to write their own stories, and also to provide books not just by Africans, but science is is needed, art is needed, Shakespeare is needed. Why should Africans use or read books that are not necessarily by Africans?
Oh well, to start with, I think Books to Africa, you're doing a fantastic job. I really would commend your efforts getting books to Africa. I mean. It cannot be overemphasized, the need for reading. Personally, it pains my heart that in the world we live in today, reading is not a very popular culture. It's not a very popular hobby either. Okay, and I think social media has kind of made it even worse for people to read. Part of mind control, people prefer to watch TV. And incidentally, not even the right programs. Okay, they wouldn't want to watch documentaries or history or what have you. It's more about things that attend to our banal sentiments. But reading itself,
It's educational.
it's educational. It gives you the opportunity to, it makes you informed. But it's sad that people don't read. I would actually encourage, if we could get a campaign going to encourage people to read, and Africa in particular needs to read. But I don't know if, I don't know the level of readership in Africa. If you don't mind my just making a reference to an interview that Chimamanda Adichie, that was in Paris, had, and then the French interviewer asked her that, are there bookstores or so? Was that the question?
Or libraries?
Yeah, are there bookstores or whatever in Africa, or in Nigeria? Well, she gave a very wonderful response. But that shows you, how much, where people don't know about Africa to start with, where there are bookstores, but then we who have been there and we know much of what goes on in there, I don't know how much people read. So if we are able to, if through your efforts you're able to get Nigerians in reading, fine. And of course, you talked about books. I mean, it's not only, the books that are relevant are not only books that are written by Black people or by Africans. Okay, I mean, some of the history books we have today are actually from non-African authors or what have you. So yes, I mean, and life is broad, isn't it? It's not just about maybe arts or sciences or what have you.
Absolutely.
Every little bit of information, so long as it is accurate,
Yes.
It's
It's useful.
Yeah, it helps.
Great. Well, thank you for coming today, Ziri, and it's a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you.
Again, Ziri's book, Ziri Dafranchi, Life and Mystery Solved. And you have another book. What's that one called? The one
I
that's coming.
have two books actually in the pipeline. I think it's going into the publishing process that completes the trilogy.
Okay.
About this. Without giving much information, I'll say that the second book is more, it deals with the issue of race.
Right.
Okay. And it delves into history. You heard me say that humanity originated in Africa, which maybe not many people know.
Yeah,
but it talks about history, and then it deals with contemporary issues, social issues, like discrimination based on race and all. And the aim of the book actually is to inform people from the different parts of humanity, regardless of your skin color, about the truth about life, I mean, about humanity, so that we can begin to see ourselves as one and get together. Then the third book actually deals with religion.
Right.
Okay, and that
which is a whole nother,
that is something else altogether. But
that's fine. I mean, for the sake of time, we're not going to be able to talk about all those other ones. But please, guys, do check out Ziri's book. Support him. He's an African friend of mine, a good friend, a good supporter of Books to Africa as well. And that's what we're really about. We're really about encouraging African authors, encouraging you guys to, of course, get African perspectives on life as well. So thank you for having us today. Do join us next time on Books to Africa on air. See you.
Every day, millions of good books are thrown away. Yet 50% of people who go to school in Africa will not be able to read or write properly because they have no books. Books to Africa collects donated books and send them to projects in Africa. You can donate your books, fund a container shipment to Africa, or become a dedicated sponsor. Please do not throw your books away. Go to www.bookstoafrica.org to get involved. Thank you.